I'm Mike Cruz, your host, private pilot, author of Saturday Every Day, and CEO of North Texas Wealth Management, a firm dedicated to values-based financial planning. Welcome back to another episode of the Values Exchange podcast. Mike Cruz, glad to be here with you. We have a special guest today, Hamp Reed. He's president of Stature Aviation, co-owner. We're going to talk about some great things today. We're going to talk about getting your pilot's license if you've ever dreamed of doing that and what's all entailed in that process. And also, how do you choose a flight school? How do you stay safe in the process? And then, for many people, they think about chartering an aircraft but don't know where to begin. Or ultimately, what if you bought your own airplane? And of course, the learning curve is steep. And so Hamp's here to talk about how to do that. And then also he has a, unique flying experience and story of how he got to where he is, and looking forward to sharing that story with you today. Hamp Reed was born and raised in the Mississippi Delta, where his aviation career began by flying low levels and checking water levels on his family farm. Since then, he's been involved in aviation for over 20 years. He's accumulated over 3,000 hours of flight time, which is a feat, and a multitude of aircraft. In addition, he's held leadership roles in the past 18 years and now the co-owner and president of Stature Aviation in Addison, Texas. His company focuses on helping people understand the benefits of private aviation and guides them through the entire process from start to finish. In under 5 years, he grew and led his team to become one of the largest training centers in the country and continues searching for ways to add value to his clients. Hamp's inspired daily by his wife and 2 daughters. His family man, attends Hope Fellowship Church in Prosper, and always impressed just being a man of faith. So, Hamp, thanks for being here with me. Welcome to the Values Exchange.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
All right. Well, I got to tell you, aviation is one of these things that we always say it either kind of bites you, grabs a hold of you. So, growing up in Mississippi and flying low levels, tell me about that very first flight. What was it like? Did you instantly love it? Did it scare you to death?
Oh, wow. I don't know if I can remember the first one because I was small. So we've always had small airplanes in the family. So I can remember being in the airplane with a plane we still own today, by the way, which is pretty cool.
Wow.
But in the plane with my mom and dad as a very small child. So it's always been how we moved around in Mississippi, and whether it be hunting clubs and this and that, and mainly on the farm and just around those areas and airplanes. So it's been in my blood. So I don't know if I can really remember how it grabbed me at first.
Yeah.
But I grew up in it. It's just a part of it.
All right.
So, and I've always loved everything about aviation. So it's just a path that was clear was going to be in my life. I didn't really know how it was going to be in my life or what extent that I was going to be, but I knew it was going to be a huge portion of my life.
Yeah. So what type of plane is this that you were?
It's a Citabria.
Okay.
We've had multiple, but the one I'm talking about is a Citabria. It's a small 2-seater aerobatic airplane.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
nice. And so, who was the pilot? Your dad?
My dad. So my dad's a pilot, as well as both my grandparents.
Wow.
So there's been a lot of aviation.
Yeah.
Going through the family.
Yeah.
So my dad still flies this day.
Now I'm the only pilot in my family. Everybody looks at me like, they don't know how I got into it, but totally different experience. I mean, you don't remember anybody not being in aviation, really, is it?
No, as far back as I remember, there's been airplanes around.
Yeah.
So, several different ones, but always been a part of our family.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then as far as favorite trip, favorite thing to do with the family growing up with the plane, was there any kind of memories that really stood out to you?
The main flight we would make would be 20 minutes away.
Okay.
I know it didn't seem like a big trip, but we had another house right on the Mississippi River, and that's where our hunting club is. And growing up in Mississippi, we don't have pro sports. We don't have this and that.
Yeah.
We hunt, and that's kind of our sport.
Get there and back.
And you get there and back, and we also farm, so we could land. We had an airstrip, and we pull right up to the house. So that is the neatest memory for us, because which was about an hour drive, where we could run back, check things, and be back several times a day. So maybe not so much trips, but just the function of the airplane. And then when I got my license, I was doing that and not going with my dad, but
just going
to work every day.
Nice.
Yeah, so it was fun.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And how old were you when you got your license?
It was in college, so.
Okay. Yeah, so in college.
20, yeah, something like that.
Okay.
19, 20, so
nice.
Right up there.
Nice. Yeah, very
Got
good.
to think back a little bit. Did a lot of flying back then, doing just that. Went to college to get my ratings, and it's one thing my dad said, if you want to do it, I want you to do it the right way. And so I went to a small college called Delta State University. And going up through there, the plan was, since I flew, I had a lot of time right there after I started getting my ratings, and I had access to airplanes, so my hours were building relatively fast. You think, okay, for getting your ratings, you're going to go the airline route. So that's kind of the path I was taking. But I was a senior during 9/11, and it rerouted my future. So in just how it happened to work out, kind of went different paths for a little while and actually ended up here in the DFW area. So, and got into more of a sales position, but still wrapped in airplanes.
Okay.
And so I started selling aircraft for quite a while and flying around and doing demos for people around Texas, and loved it. So quickly realized that that's where I want to be. It just felt good. I love experiencing and letting people experience the aircraft and kind of feed off of that excitement, and ultimately doing that and growing into more of a path of what we realized these customers are looking for. Fast forward a few years and we started Stature Aviation, and now that's what we encapsulate everything about, taking somebody from that feeling all the way up to having their aircraft.
No, that's great. No, it's a great business. I mean, I've been over to Stature and done flight training and got a license there and everything, and it was a great experience. And I've been at other flight schools, and I got to tell you, there's something special about Stature. You guys do it right.
Well, I appreciate that.
Yeah,
we appreciate it.
Yeah. So yeah, full endorsement. If somebody asks me, "Are you going to get a pilot's license?" I go to Stature.
No, well, thank you. I appreciate that.
And for sure, I've encouraged. Obviously, my son has an interest in it, and I said, "Yep, we're going to go through Stature Aviation." And I think the difference is that when you start looking for a flight school, one of the things that I look at is like, which planes are they flying? Some flight schools are still flying the same planes they flew in 1960 versus you guys. Tell a little bit about the fleet that you use.
You're correct. And really, they're all wonderful, and you're all getting the same rating. It's a lot of different schools have different purposes. A lot of people going through to get their ratings are kind of doing what I did. They're pressing through to get that rating or ratings in order to start their career, whether it be charter pilot or airline pilot, whatever it may be. They're not looking to ever purchase an airplane at that point. Our customers are not really that clientele. They're not looking for a career change. And so we kind of found that void, and what we're offering is we're doing more of an instructing to the people that are looking to get into aviation to make it part of their life. And so we train in brand new aircraft. We strictly train in Sirus aircraft. Really what we did is we could have trained in any, but we went down and what checked the most boxes for safety, the functions, what it can carry, and the Sirus checks the most boxes. And we partnered up with Sirus, and we've been able to get a lot of families into the aircraft to make it an extension of their aircraft, extension of their family, like their car would be. Yeah. And we've taught them how to fly and done everything. We take care of their aircraft for them. We do it all. So they give us a call, let us know that they want their aircraft. We have it out, cleaned, ready to go. The family, we help them load up, and they're off wherever they're letting go.
Yeah. And I think one of the amazing things for me was to realize that commercially, when you go buy a ticket to fly somewhere, there's only about 600 airports nationwide. But as soon as you get into a small airplane or your own private airplane, there's over 6,000 airports.
Exactly right.
So you can land, look up almost any small city, and there's an airport there. And so you can get closer to your destination, less travel time. It really is more convenient, which is pretty cool. So, obviously I bought a Sirus airplane. I did the same checklist. we always talk about the mission, right? If you want to, get from point A to point B, but you enjoy just kind of aviation and flying a little bit lower than, and maybe not spending as much money as it costs to get a jet. Sirus checked the majority of that for me on my mission. But when you start looking at beyond just the airplane, choosing a flight school, what do you kind of think? Family members going to get their pilot's license, and they said, hey, what should I look at for a flight school? And they're not near Stature Aviation. What would be that checklist for you?
Well, again, it goes back to what type school. The chances are they're going to go into what's called a 141 school.
Okay.
And that school basically has a checklist and a system to follow. And they do a great job, and they cover it all. We are a Part 61, which basically means we're going to sit down across from a table, and we're going to learn at your pace. Okay. So, because everybody has different paces. So, strengths, weaknesses, everybody differs. So if someone's somewhere else and looking for a flight school, there's a lot of great options out there. But it's almost the speed at which they're wanting to go, the planes they're wanting to fly, they need to do some research. The majority of them are in the planes like you were talking about. Great planes, but they're training aircraft. So it's got to be dependent on what outcome they're looking to do.
Okay. And then I think something unique about Stature is also that the instructors are not just trying to jump to the airlines. They felt, everybody I've flown with has always seemed like they were more interested in me learning than them flying the airplane. Whereas I can tell you, I was at another flight school, and the whole time I felt like the instructor just wanted to fly the airplane, and I was like, am I supposed to be learning? And the reason was they wanted to get their hours, they wanted to fly, and they wanted to get onto the airline.
You're exactly right. That's what and that's great for them, and it is a great way. One of the only ways that they can build that time, and that's where most flight instructors come from. They're doing just that. They're building that time to go on to something else. So most of our people too, they're newer instructors, and that's great. But we're very selective on who we bring in, and we transition them into this aircraft, the Sirus airplane, and we do a lot of coaching and teaching on this student that they're going to be with, or the type student they're going to be with. That, just like we're saying, we also have to tell our instructors, because most of our instructors came up in that type flight school environment.
Right.
So we have to teach them they're not on a time, to be much more personal and to slow down and work on their pace. Because our customers are there to really absorb it. They're not worried overly about the speed, just like yourself when you came in. You really wanted to get a deep knowledge of aviation to be safe. You're going to get your family in there. You're going to do everything. So it really deepen in there, not trying to hit a timeline so you can make a slot to get hired somewhere.
Okay. I didn't know what the difference was, but there's a difference, and it always felt like that's a good way to say it. It's slowed down, it's personalized, and it's like invested in. I want you to learn and be safe, not just check off the box.
Right.
Yeah, that makes sense. So, going into it, I guess, make the decision. I want to get my pilot's license. Where does somebody start?
That's a great question. So we have a lot of people call us saying that very thing. I would say the majority of leads that we get in say that. I'm at a spot in my life. I've always wanted to get my license. What do I need to do to get started? The first thing that we always do is we invite them up for a discovery flight.
Okay, so for the discovery flight, you say that people get in the airplane, they fly with an instructor, and you say they get to actually fly the airplane.
That's exactly right. So we'll send them up in an airplane with one of our instructors up front with them. And the aircraft that we fly have controls on both sides, and that's how they'll learn, while obtaining their rating. But what we do is we'll actually put them in the left seat of the aircraft with the instructor fully at the controls, but they get to sit up front and see everything that's going on. And they'll basically kind of do a first lesson and teach them, the throttle and moving forward and going down the strip, and they get to ride those controls. So they get to feel pulling back on it, the plane starting to fly. And then once you're up in the air and in a comfortable spot, that's where the instructors can let them get on the controls of the aircraft so they can feel themselves moving the airplane up and down, moving around, fly some circles, and actually fly the aircraft. They'll be fully at the controls. The instructor's right there with them the entire time. And they can go up and they can do that for 30, 45 minutes, an hour, and then they'll return to the airport, which at that time the instructor will get back on the controls of the airplane, land back in Addison or Fort Worth, and that will conclude the discovery flight.
Okay. So the instructor's going to do the complex parts of the flight.
Absolutely. The instructor's doing everything. They're able to just observe and actually get their hands and feel a little bit about what's going on in the aircraft. But the instructor's there the whole time.
And I remember my first flight in a Cessna, and I remember landing and just going, wow, there was so much going on. I will never be able to do all this. But, fortunately it worked out.
There you go.
So chartering an airplane, what if I say, I don't know if I want to get my pilot's license, but I do think flying privately sounds very interesting. Maybe I can, fly to some unique destinations or, charter an event or family. Talk to me a little bit about that. How does chartering work? Do you have your own planes or is it a network? How does that work?
There's a massive network out there, basically all over the world to charter aircraft. But people can call us or a multitude of 135 companies out there. And a lot of them, the companies do own their own airplanes that they go out and charter. Stature Aviation does not. But what we do is we reach out into the network and somebody will call us and tell us when and where they need to go and how many people.
Okay.
And basically what we do is we reach out into the network and we see what aircraft are out there that will fit that mission and that's available, and the pilots are available, and everything is lined up, and we calculate it all down to a single number of what that trip will cost. And then we reach back out to those clients and say, for X, you can be in this type airplane and leave at these times. And charter's a phenomenal way for someone to travel, move around the country that strictly wants to be able to go to the airport, get on the airplane, make their trip, get out, and never think about it again. It's a fantastic way to move around.
Yeah.
If someone's going to do more frequent flying, ownership is, a better way to look.
Yeah, makes sense. So what if they get into aviation, get their pilot's license, and then they decide they want to own a plane? How do you guide people into buying a plane, and what's all involved in that? You discussed that Stature manages airplanes too. So if I were to just buy a plane, how does that work?
Yeah. The main thing we would do is we would talk about the mission. We keep talking about the missions. Basically, we're saying, what do you need the plane for? Where are you looking to go? How far? And how much are you looking to carry? So once we answer those few questions, we can start identifying the best aircraft. Now, we fix that with a newer pilot. It's going to have insurance minimum. So we have to think about all that too, to make sure it's a plane that they can get into and fly safely and build time in.
Yeah.
And again, I'd revert back to the main aircraft that we end up helping people acquire is a Sirus aircraft. Again, it checks off so many of those boxes. So this day and age, it's a lot of people, when you talk private, they envision jets, they envision big things, they envision, very expensive aircraft. And as things are evolving and technology is getting better, the smaller aircraft are able to do so much more than they used to be able to do. So a lot of people are amazed of how inexpensive private aviation can be, in which you can accomplish, in these aircraft such as the Sirus. We've got people that fly, to College Station, and then we've got people that will go to either coast. So now, where planes used to really be limited, you can go anywhere you want with full safety. So redundancy, everybody's comfortable in the airplane. All four seats are comfortable. You can fill it up with 4 adults. So the capabilities of the smaller airplane now are light years ahead from where they were just 20 years ago.
Yeah. And I think, they call it a technologically advanced airplane for the Sirus. It has the big screens and gives you better situational awareness. And I think it's, a lot safer. And it's, I would say that kind of like at North Texas Wealth Management, technologically advanced, we stay on kind of cutting edge. So when I was choosing a plane, that was kind of a natural progression for me to go find a plane that feels cutting edge and the latest technology and latest safety. That was really important. And of course, the Sirus aircraft is known for the plane with the parachute.
Right? That's true. Yes.
Yeah, so the parachute, the whole plane comes down under a parachute. If you were run out of other options, that would be the kind of last case scenario.
That's exactly right. It's the last option, but it's just that extra layer of safety that you hope you never have to use, but it's there if you need it.
Right. You put your family in there, and you're the pilot, and you run out of options. You don't have to tell your family, I'm sorry, you just pull the chute.
You're exactly right.
At least you have an option.
Exactly right.
How much does that factor into people choosing to work with Stature? Is it the parachute still a big driving factor?
It is. And it's something that we make sure people understand. So, again, it's one of those things you hope you never use. But if you look at what Sirus has been able to do in developing such an amazing airplane, and they have had pools, and to look at the success rate of the safety rate when they have had to pull the chute, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Yeah.
So looking at all those numbers and the safety of the airplane, it's the only airplane that I put my family in.
Yeah.
Piston-driven airplane. So it does play a huge factor. And that's the biggest thing that most people come to us. They always say, oh, these are the airplanes with the parachutes.
Yep.
And we say, yes, they are.
Yeah, it's pretty unique. So when people go down the path of buying a plane, what are the pitfalls? Where do they kind of, what do they need to avoid with, all your experience in aviation? Somebody jumps in, they get kind of maybe too excited about, I want to become a pilot, I want to buy my own plane, I'm going to travel for business. Where do they go wrong?
Well, a lot of it, people can go wrong by jumping out there and just quickly buying what's available without getting somebody to help them do it that is knowledgeable in the area. All these aircraft do have to go through specific maintenance checks, and if you jump out and buy something and haven't done the proper studying on the aircraft, it can end up being a costly mistake. And what it can do, things can be fixed. They're machines. They can be fixed, but what it can do is it can damage somebody's. They didn't get the experience they were looking for, and they may go the other way. And they were so close to getting involved in something that could have changed their life, but they had a bad experience, and they said, "I'm done with aviation," and that mortifies. That scares me. I don't want people to do that.
Yeah. So
what we do is we really focus hard on getting them in the right airplane to make sure that they get the best experience. So then if it's not for them, it's not for them, But a good run at it.
Yeah.
Is what we want, so they can get a full understanding of what all it can bring and enhance their current lifestyle.
Yeah, I had a friend of mine that thought about getting his pilot's license, and he was kind of taking lessons and going down that path. And I think the reality is sometimes there's big trade-offs in airplanes as far as how fast they fly, how high you can go, and, at certain altitudes, at some point you might have to put on a mask and a piston aircraft, and they just picture the whole family in there with mask on, breathing oxygen. They're like, for my wife, that's not going to work. She's not going to wear a mask. And so that limits the altitude that we can fly. And then, also, you start thinking, like for me, I have 3 kids and we can all fit in the airplane, but it doesn't leave much weight for luggage, right? Or we have to make more stops along the way. We can't fly from point A to point B. We need a fuel stop along the way. And so I think this individual was very surprised at that. I think they were just going to jump in the plane, throw all the bags in, take their whole family, and they have even more kids. So they started looking at what type of airplane that would take. And when you start carrying a lot of bags, a lot of weight, and a lot of fuel, and want to go fast, the price gets more and more expensive pretty quick.
It does.
And kind of unaware of that, just thinking, I'm going to jump in, get my pilot's license, and then buy this great plane that will do every mission. And you start thinking about there's trade-off. Yeah.
There is. And a lot of people would do that. A lot of people will go out and they'll buy that aircraft for when they're going to take their family vacation. They buy it kind of out of order. So they'll say, look, 5% of the time I need to take everybody I know in this airplane with me. But 95% of the time, I'm going to be by myself making business runs.
Right.
And they'll go buy that airplane for the 5% need. And it just throws everything off. It makes it a very expensive venture when you're by yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So really getting the right airplane for the vast majority of the missions. it makes for a much better experience for that person. And then they can charter on the few that they need a larger aircraft without having to buy the aircraft.
Right. Otherwise, that they have that one plane and that one family vacation per year ends up being extremely expensive.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
Exactly right.
Yeah. I can see how that would happen. Yeah. What advice do you have for young people just now getting interested in a career in aviation?
I would strongly advise to go out to an airport, or if they're around here, come to us. We'd love having children come around or people around. We have expos, we have events. We love introducing people to aviation, and everybody does. That's one common bond that you'll see if they go around to any airport. It'll be hard to find somebody that wouldn't want to show people the aircraft. It just is what it is. And to come out and get involved, aviation it's growing, growing rapidly, and things that, especially children, they say a lot more things will be in the air in the future. The technology and advancements and automation. So aviation will only continue to grow in the future. And I tell them, get in an airplane.
Yeah.
Go check it out.
And then what do you think of there's just been launched from Sirus, a new Generation 7 aircraft.
Yes.
All new rework inside the airplane to make it even, more like their jet. Yes. Have you seen an influx of more interest because of it?
Yes, because of the demand. Sure. It's such an amazing airplane. There's a lot of people moving towards that aircraft, and myself being one of them. And they did an amazing job on the revamp because they've learned that so many people are loving that aircraft. They are doing more. They're going more places. They're living that life, or the Sirus life, as they call it. And what they're going to want to do is, one bad part about earlier you mentioned the bug, eventually you will want to go higher, faster, farther. That's why they developed that jet, and they did a beautiful job of making that SR look a lot like the jet. So it's a safer transition into a bigger airplane that the pilots will ultimately want to go.
Yeah.
So it's amazing airplane, and I cannot wait to get some at Stature Aviation. We'll have some here in a couple of months.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that's exciting. And then overall, what trends do you see just in personal, private aviation in the future? You say, the future's growing. Where do you think it's all headed?
Well, there's going to be, I feel there's going to be a lot more people flying in the future. Like I said, things are getting so much more advanced. The planes are getting so much safer. They're taking away a lot of those stresses from people and making it more obtainable. Earlier you mentioned you thought you would never be able to do this. Well, back then planes were scary looking on the inside, a bunch of needles moving around and all this that's all gone. We're looking at things that we're accustomed to this day and age, computer screens. It's a more comfortable feel. And when you start off more comfortable, it's a game changer in the learning events. But especially where we are right now, sitting in the DFW market, and so many companies are coming in, and there's so much business around here in the surrounding states. Private aviation is one of the only ways that I know of that you can cover so much ground in a day's time and be home. And at the end of the day, that's the goal. We only have so many hours in a day. Time is the new currency, and that's what we're all after. And private aviation is the only thing that can really allow us to maximize what we want to do in a certain time frame.
Yeah.
Moving around, going to a business meeting and being home with your family at dinner. Just couldn't do that. Drive it. The airlines are wonderful, but there's a lot on the front and the back of an airline. So visiting family, all these different ways that private aviation can slide in, and they do just that. They maximize that time and that value of your life so you can be where you want to be.
Right. And for me, it's being able to spend that time at work, for example, like a Friday at work, but my son has a golf tournament 3 hours away, and I take off Saturday morning. I'm there in less than an hour, and I'm, there at 8 o'clock and watching them tee off, and I didn't miss any of that time with family.
How great is that?
But I also have that time at work, right? And so it is.
Absolutely.
I call it the time machine. You get to be in both.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It is. Yeah. It's a obtainable time machine.
Well, it's great. Hamp, thanks for teaching us a little bit about, personal aviation. For those that say, man, I'm really interested, I've always wanted to get my license, start with Stature Aviation. Where can they find you?
They can find us on our website at statureaviation.com, or they can always email us at info@statureaviation.com, and we'll send out pamphlets and everything that someone may need to know on how to get started.
All right. Thanks for being here.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right.
I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks for tuning in for another episode of the Values Exchange podcast. Everyone knows my passion for aviation, and all the time people ask me, where should I go? How do I get started? And, I always tell them, Stature Aviation. So that'd be great for, Hamp to come on and really tell everybody a little bit more detail about the process. So hopefully you found that helpful, and stay tuned for future episodes.